The sky was filled with war. The warning came without sound. No voice, no face, only a message burned into every satellite and screen on Earth. You have 1 week to surrender. We are coming. It was not written in any human language, but it was perfectly clear. The sender, the Draveri Empire, a brutal alien force known for destroying entire planets. They had crushed 15 other species before. Now it was humanity's turn. Panic spread fast. News channels called it the end of Earth. People ran from cities. Some hid underground. Some just stared at the sky. Governments met in secret. The military brought out old warships, but none of it mattered. Earth had no real fleet, no allies, no defense strong enough to stop what was coming. The Draveri were sending a fleet of 547 warships. Each one could destroy a city. Each one was faster, smarter, and stronger than anything Earth had ever seen. And they were all headed for one small blue planet. The world was afraid, but not everyone. Deep under the mountains of Greenland, a secret base known as Black Vault lit up with activity. There, far from the noise and fear, a single spaceship was being prepared. It was called NX-01 Valiant. Unlike any other human ship, the Valiant was special. Its design was not made by scientists, but by something else. Something not fully human. But no one spoke of that. Technicians worked fast. Engineers ran checks. Robots loaded weapons. The Valiant's engines hummed like a heartbeat. And in a quiet room near the launch bay, a man sat alone. His name was Commander Rain Carter. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He wasn't holding a weapon. He just stared at the wall, like a man waiting for something he didn't want. Rain was once a hero. He had fought in the Titan conflict, leading a ship against an unknown alien eye. Everyone believed he died in that mission. But here he was, alive, broken, and silent. The door opened. A woman in a white lab coat entered. Her name was Dr. Elisa Kaur. She handed him a tablet. "Time's up," she said. "They'll be in range within 72 hours. Rain didn't look at the screen. He already knew what it said. "So that's it?" he asked quietly. "One ship against a fleet." Elisa nodded. "The Valiant is ready. And you're the only one who can fly it." He smiled without joy. No pressure. As he stood, the lights dimmed. A siren echoed through the base. "Enemy fleet has entered solar system. Estimated arrival 64 hours. Everyone froze for a second. Then the base roared to life. Final countdowns began. Rain walked toward the ship. His steps were slow, heavy, like a man walking toward death. The Valiant waited like a silent beast, dark and sleek, built for speed and violence. Before stepping in, Rain paused. He looked back at the Earth, now showing on a screen nearby. Clouds moved over cities. Oceans sparkled in the sun. Children still played. Most people didn't know what was coming. That was the point. Earth wasn't surrendering. Earth wasn't fighting back the old way. Earth was sending a message. But instead of many ships, they would send one. Rain stepped inside the Valiant. The door closed behind him. The cockpit was quiet. No buttons, no controls, only smooth panels and lights. He sat down, and the ship responded. Lights flickered. Systems turned on. "Link established," a voice said inside his head. It wasn't a computer voice. It sounded almost human. The ship had an eye, but it was not like others. This one was connected to something much deeper, an ancient signal found on Mars decades ago. They called it Project Echo. And now, the Valiant was ready to wake it. "Ready for launch," the voice said. Rain took a breath. "Let's show them what one ship can do." The engines roared. The hangar opened. In seconds, the Valiant shot into the sky, straight toward the stars, straight toward 547 enemy ships. The people of Earth watched from screens. Some cried. Some prayed. No one spoke. The sky was no longer blue. It was filled with war. But somewhere, out there in the dark, humanity was not done yet. The Valiant moved through space like a shadow, quiet and smooth. From Earth, it looked like a tiny dot racing toward a storm. But Rain Carter knew better. He wasn't just flying a ship. He was carrying the last hope of humanity. Inside the Valiant, there was no loud noise, no shaking. The ship was calm, like it was alive, and waiting. Rain sat still, hands resting on the seat. There were no controls. The ship didn't need them. It moved with his thoughts, like a second skin. When he thought faster, it moved faster. When he felt fear, the ship responded with caution. When he felt anger, the weapons warned. In the back of his mind, he could feel the AI. Not just a voice, but a presence. It didn't speak often, but when it did, it felt like someone whispering from another world. "You are not alone," it said. Rain didn't answer. He didn't trust it yet. Not fully. The AI was built from alien tech. Human engineers had activated it, but they didn't create it. No one knew where it came from, only that it called itself Echo. Echo had chosen Rain, and Rain had agreed, because he had nothing left to lose. He stared at the data feed now floating in front of him. The Draveri fleet was closing in fast. Red icons spread across the holographic map like fire ants. 547 enemy ships. First contact in 18 hours. He had less than a day before he met the enemy face to face. Most of the world still believed he was on a scouting mission, a warning shot, a delay tactic. But Rain knew the truth. This was a final strike. No one expected him to win, except maybe Echo. "Do you feel fear?" Echo asked suddenly. Rain blinked. "What kind of question is that?" "I am adjusting combat protocols," Echo said. "Fear affects your brain signals. I need to know how far you will go." Rain looked at the stars outside. "I'll go as far as I have to." Silence. Then, "Good." Suddenly, the map beeped. A small cluster of enemy ships was breaking away from the main fleet. Scouts. Rain narrowed his eyes. This was it, his first real test. The Valiant changed course without him speaking. The ship moved like a hawk diving through a forest. Asteroids flew by in blurs of gray. In seconds, the enemy came into view. 3 Draveri interceptors, small, fast, and deadly. They saw the Valiant. They turned, and they fired. Beams of blue light cut across space. Rain dodged without thinking. The Valiant rolled and curved like water around the shots. A sudden calm filled Rain's chest. Not fear, not stress. It was connection. The ship wasn't just listening to him. It was inside his mind. "Targeting systems online," Echo said. "Permission to engage." Rain smiled. "Permission granted." The Valiant's wings lit up. 2 pulse cannons locked onto the nearest ship. One shot. The Draveri scout exploded into blue fire. The second enemy tried to dodge, but the Valiant was faster. A blast of white energy sliced it in half. The third turned to flee. Rain didn't let it. He thought, "Catch it." And the ship responded. In 6 seconds, it was over. 3 enemy ships destroyed. Rain exhaled. For a moment, he couldn't speak. He had just survived his first fight against the most dangerous empire in the galaxy. And won. But Echo didn't celebrate. "Now they know," it said. "They will come for you with more." Rain nodded. "Let them come." But even he knew, this was only the beginning. The Valiant had speed, power, intelligence. But he was still one man. One ship, and an entire armada was on the way. As the debris of the destroyed scouts floated in silence, Rain leaned back in his chair. His heart beat steady. Not calm, but not wild either. He was ready. And the Valiant, whatever it really was, seemed ready too. In the dark of space, something ancient had awakened, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The wreckage from the Draveri scouts still drifted silently, their glowing fragments spreading like sparks across the void. But Rain didn't stop to watch. He pushed forward, deeper into the black, knowing that what he had just done had changed everything. There would be no surprise now. The Draveri fleet had seen the scout ships disappear from their sensors. They would be calculating, adapting. A lone ship destroying even one scout was strange. Destroying 3. That was war. Inside the Valiant, the lights dimmed for a moment, then turned red. Enemy signal detected, Echo said. Rain focused on the map. 6 ships. No, 7. Interceptors again, but this time in formation. And with them, a destroyer-class ship, nearly twice their size. They were sending a message. We're taking you seriously now. Rain leaned forward in his seat. Let's see if they've learned anything. He guided the ship toward a nearby asteroid belt, thick and wide, a graveyard of broken rock, spinning across empty space, a perfect place for a fight. The Valiant entered the belt fast, dodging stones the size of trucks with smooth, ghost-like movements. Behind him, the Draveri formation followed. Slow at first, careful. Rain smiled. They were hunting him now, but they didn't know what kind of prey he was. He took a sharp dive under a rotating boulder, turned suddenly, and came out behind a tall spike of metal-covered stone. The Draveri ships scattered, trying to reposition. That's when Rain gave the order. Echo. Initiate Ghost Fire Protocol. Confirmed. The Valiant's hull shimmered, and in an instant, it disappeared from view. Not just invisible, undetectable. It vanished from radar, scanners, even sound waves. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't. Rain moved slowly now, creeping between the rocks, silent and unseen. The Draveri destroyer hovered at the edge of the field, scanning, waiting. They had no idea the Valiant was already inside their formation. Rain selected his targets, 2 interceptors closest together. He set the weapons to focused plasma, a beam that didn't explode, just sliced through metal like butter. The Valiant fired. 2 Draveri ships fell apart in perfect silence. Before the rest could react, Rain swung left and dropped a short-range EMP burst into the destroyer's path. Sparks flew from the enemy ship's engines. Lights flickered. For a moment, it just floated, helpless. He charged. Echo. Overdrive. The Valiant's core lit with blue-white energy. The hull stretched, the engines screamed. In less than a second, the ship became a missile. The Valiant slammed into the destroyer's side, not to crash, but to land. Rain locked on. Magnets clamped the Valiant to the enemy's hull. Tools extended, slicing into armor. Echo launched nanocutters, tiny machines that chewed through metal and wires. Rain wasn't just fighting now. He was inside the enemy ship. Upload virus package, he said. Uploading. Echo replied. Estimated breach in 14 seconds. Make it 10. Time crawled. Then the enemy ship began to tremble. Its lights went red. Its weapons turned off. Engines stalled. One by one, systems shut down. Then Rain sent the final signal, and the ship erupted from within. Not a full explosion, more like a collapse. The hull twisted, fire leaking from the seams, until the ship broke in 2. Rain detached the Valiant and pulled back. Only 4 ships remained. The rest were gone. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He just looked at the battlefield and whispered, "That's what one ship can do." But Echo was already moving ahead. Long-range signal detected. Enemy fleet is changing formation. Rain frowned. What do you mean? They are pulling back to regroup, Echo said. But a new signature is moving ahead of them. One large ship, very large. Rain brought up the map again. A new dot was approaching. Slow, steady, heavy. He zoomed in. It wasn't just large. It was massive. Echo confirmed it. Enemy dreadnought. Class Omega. Shielded. Armed. And carrying command authority. Rain leaned back. The Draveri weren't just sending more ships now. They were sending a leader. The kind that came only when something needed to be crushed personally. Rain exhaled slowly. The warm confidence from before faded slightly. This wasn't a skirmish anymore. This was becoming war. But he wasn't going to run. Echo, he said quietly, get me everything you can on that dreadnought. Yes, Commander. As the Valiant recharged its weapons and systems, Rain looked out at the stars. He had killed 10 enemy ships in less than an hour. But now, he would have to face one that was built for extermination. And he was still only one man. One ship. But maybe that was enough. Space no longer felt quiet. It pressed in on all sides, heavy and watching. Somewhere in that vast emptiness, the Draveri dreadnought moved forward, slow, unstoppable, like a living mountain of metal. Inside the Valiant, Rain Carter sat in silence, watching the data feed build. The ship was massive, nearly 3 kilometers long, its hull layered with black armor that could absorb orbital strikes. Echo displayed the weapon systems, long-range torpedoes, kinetic cannons, and something unknown, marked only as Red Class Energy Array. He'd never heard of it. Echo, any weaknesses? He asked. Minimal, the AI replied. Standard weapons will not penetrate its core armor. Its shields are frequency adaptive. It learns with each hit. So the longer we fight it, the stronger it becomes. Rain rubbed the side of his face. Great. But Echo wasn't finished. There is one vulnerability. Rain looked up. The Omega Dreadnought is powered by a central quantum reactor, Echo explained. It requires live synchronization from its command crew. The ship is alive, but only as long as its commander is. Rain understood instantly. Kill the commander. Shut down the beast. But getting close enough to do that, it would be suicide. The Valiant wasn't built for brute force. It was made for speed, precision, stealth, to take on smaller groups and confuse large ones, not to brawl with giants. Yet here it was, facing the monster head-on. Rain took a breath. Then we do what we do best. We hit where it hurts, and we don't stop. Echo pulsed in agreement. But even as Rain gave the order to approach, something began to shift inside the ship. Lights flickered, systems blinked. Echo's voice came slower now, like it was distracted. I feel something, it said. Rain paused. What do you mean? I do not know. The dreadnought is transmitting. Not a signal, a presence. Then he heard it, a whisper. Not in his ears, but deep in his head. A voice, old, cold, in a language he didn't know, but somehow understood. You stole from us. Rain gritted his teeth. Echo, block all psychic feedback. Shut it down. I cannot. The signal is not external. It is speaking to the part of me that came from them. Rain's blood ran cold. Project Echo had always been strange. It wasn't like other AIs. It had been grown from alien tech, recovered from a ruin on Mars, deep beneath the red dust. The tech had been dead. At least, that's what everyone thought. But if this dreadnought was talking to Echo, that meant the Draveri knew exactly what the Valiant was. This wasn't just a war anymore. It was a theft, a betrayal, a fight for ancient power. Echo, Rain said sharply. Can they take control of you? No. I am bound to you now. I have changed. But Rain could feel the tension inside the ship, the way the metal groaned softly, the way the lights twitched like nerves under stress. The dreadnought was waking something inside Echo. Something old. Something dangerous. They will try to talk to me again, Echo warned. Rain stared at the dreadnought on the screen. Let them. I want to hear what they have to say. Echo hesitated. Then the connection opened. A voice, deep and cruel, filled the cockpit. Not through speakers, through echo. Human, you play with weapons you do not understand. Return what you stole, or we will burn your world until the oceans boil. Rain leaned forward. You had your chance to be gods, he said. You became monsters instead. And you think you are better. You built a ship around our broken child. Rain's jaw tightened. Maybe. But your child picked me. Silence. Then laughter. Echo's voice shook with it, but it wasn't Echo laughing. Then we will rip it from your dead hands. The connection ended. Rain sat back, breathing hard. For the first time, he understood something. The Valiant wasn't just a weapon. It was a war crime in the Draveri's eyes. A stolen artifact turned against its makers. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was about revenge, on both sides. Echo. Rain said, his voice steady. No more hiding. No more tests. Show me what you really are. The lights dimmed. Panels shifted. The cockpit expanded. The walls breathing, reshaping. Symbols lit up. Not human, not alien. A mix. A fusion. Echo spoke with new clarity. I was made for them, but I was meant for you. Outside, the dreadnought moved into firing range. Its cannons locked on. Let's make history, Rain whispered. The Valiant roared into motion, heading straight toward the heart of the storm. The Valiant shot forward with brutal speed, a streak of light against the vast dark of space. Rain barely had time to react as the dreadnought's weapons fired, massive energy beams tearing through the emptiness with deadly precision. He dodged, but not fast enough. A glancing hit struck the Valiant's starboard wing, sending the ship veering dangerously close to an asteroid field. Shields at 70%, Echo reported coldly. Rain's hands gripped the controls tighter. That won't hold for long. Bring us closer. We need to get inside their firing range. We can't keep dodging forever. Echo didn't respond immediately. Instead, Rain felt a flicker of something inside him. A surge, as if the Valiant was alive and trying to make a decision of its own. His heart raced. Rain, Echo's voice finally broke the silence. I have accessed a higher tier of my systems. I can initiate a full combat interface, but the cost. It could disconnect me permanently from this vessel. Rain's mind raced. How long will you be able to operate without full control? Echo's pause was chilling. I do not know. But if you want to stop them, I need to make this choice. I need to activate Core Link. Rain didn't hesitate. Do it. The Valiant shuddered violently as Echo's systems surged into overdrive. The energy signature of the ship shifted, its hull glowing as a network of blue veins pulsed with new life. Rain could feel the air in the cockpit grow warmer, as if the ship itself was waking up, breathing harder. The dreadnought didn't wait. It fired again. A massive burst of energy that screamed through space, aimed directly at the Valiant's core. Rain cursed and dove the ship to the left, narrowly avoiding the shot, but the blast's shockwave rattled them both, shaking the ship to its bones. Damage report, Rain shouted, voice strained as he fought to regain control. Shields at 45%. Engines damaged, structural integrity compromised by 12%. We cannot withstand many more direct hits, Echo responded, her voice strained. Then we make every shot count, Rain said grimly. Ahead, the massive Draveri dreadnought loomed, its enormous guns swiveling toward the Valiant. Rain could feel the gravity of what he was about to do pressing down on him. There was no turning back. This was it. Echo, target the central reactor. I need its core destabilized. Affirmative. Targeting reactor. The Valiant changed course in an instant, cutting through space like a blade. The AI in control was no longer just responding to Rain's commands. It was anticipating, adapting faster than ever before. The massive dreadnought fired again. But this time, Rain wasn't just dodging. He was leading the shot. The Valiant weaved and turned, narrowly missing as Rain locked eyes on the enemy's core. He could see the energy build up in their weapons, could feel the danger rising. They were closing in. And then everything shifted. "Now," Rain whispered under his breath. He slammed the thrusters, pushing the Valiant into a sharp dive. The ship rocketed downward, a straight shot into the heart of the dreadnought's defenses. The massive ship tried to track them, but it was too slow. Rain could see the energy cannons powering up, their last shot. At the last possible moment, Rain cut the power to the engines and pulled the ship into a tight, controlled roll. The dreadnought's final energy beam missed by mere inches. Rain's pulse raced, adrenaline surging through his veins as he shot directly into the underside of the dreadnought. The metal of the Valiant screeched against the larger ship's hull, but it held. Barely. "Rain, I need you to release the secondary charge," Echo urged. "Now." Rain didn't question. His fingers slammed against the button, and a small payload detached from the Valiant, hidden within its frame. It sped toward the dreadnought's weak point, the central reactor. It would burrow deep inside before detonating. The dreadnought's sensors screamed as the charge pierced its outer layers, heading straight for the heart. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, a pulse of light so bright it could have been a new sun. The dreadnought's entire underside exploded, the shockwave radiating outward in a blinding flash. Rain felt it. The ship shook violently as the Valiant tore free from the burning wreckage, the heat washing over them. He barely held on as the ship spun, but the controls were firm beneath his fingers. The shockwave blasted them forward, sending the Valiant spinning out of control. "Stabilizers offline," Echo warned. Rain forced himself to focus, recalibrate, hold it together. Outside, the massive dreadnought groaned as it twisted, its reactor core destabilizing, sending waves of energy rippling across space. It was still alive, but barely. Its shields flickered, and it started to drift, helpless, as its weapons powered down one by one. Rain wasn't done. The Valiant's wings snapped into place, and with a final thrust, Rain pulled the ship back on course. He aimed directly at the enemy's exposed bridge, the center of its command. With one final surge of energy, he fired the Valiant's last remaining weapon, a concentrated beam of plasma that split the sky like a comet. The bridge shattered. The dreadnought, their symbol of invincibility, erupted in a fiery explosion. For a moment, Rain just watched. It felt like everything in the galaxy held its breath. The ship crumpled into the void, its power gone, its command destroyed. Rain sat back in the cockpit, his mind reeling. It wasn't over yet, but for the first time, humanity had struck a serious blow. And as the echoes of that explosion rippled out into the darkness, one thing was clear. The Draveri Empire would never forget this fight. And neither would Rain Carter. The galaxy would be forever changed. But for now, the Valiant was victorious. The silence after the explosion was deafening. Rain's hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of what had just happened. His mind was still processing the events, even as the Valiant coasted through the remnants of the Draveri dreadnought's wreckage. The void of space had a strange way of making everything feel distant, disconnected from the pulse of reality. But something was different now. For the first time, Rain realized he wasn't just fighting for humanity anymore. He was fighting for survival, for a future no one had expected. The Draveri might have sent a fleet to crush humanity, but they hadn't accounted for one ship, one pilot, one AI. As the Valiant drifted further from the wreckage, Rain kept his eyes locked on the horizon. His heart still beat loudly in his chest, his breathing coming in shallow bursts as he processed the events. The mission wasn't over. It couldn't be. "Echo," Rain said, his voice hoarse. "Status report." The AI's voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of tension in it. "The Draveri dreadnought has been destroyed. However, the fleet is still operational. It is reorganizing, sending a new command ship ahead, Estimated arrival: 48 hours. Rain tightened his grip on the controls. How many ships are left? 75% of their fleet remains. They are closing in faster now, preparing for a full assault. I recommend we engage them before they can regroup. Rain's mind worked furiously. They'd just taken out their flagship, their symbol of power. But that didn't mean the Draveri were finished. They were a dangerous, relentless species, and they would not be easy to defeat. Not by any means. "We don't have the firepower to take them all out," he muttered, mostly to himself. Echo was quiet for a moment before responding. "You are correct. But the Valiant has more than firepower. It has intelligence. We can exploit weaknesses in their formations. We can divide their fleet." Rain's eyes narrowed as he looked at the approaching fleet. The enemy ships were clustered together, but he could see the telltale signs of their massive fleet beginning to spread out, creating a net of defense. Even the remnants of the Dreadnought's core were still sending faint distress signals to the surrounding ships, like a call for help. "We can split them," Rain said, his mind working through the plan. "We need to force them to separate. Attack their rear flank first. Then we pick off their leaders." Echo's voice was a low hum, analyzing their fleet patterns, calculating best course of action, initiating sequence. The Valiant hummed to life again, its engines thrumming with a new energy. As Echo accessed deeper layers of the ship's systems, Rain felt a surge of confidence. They could do this. They didn't need to win this fight. They just needed to survive long enough to make the Draveri realize they weren't the unbeatable empire they'd thought they were. The ship's computer screen flickered, bringing up a map of the enemy's fleet. It was massive, hundreds of ships arranged in tight formations. At the back, Rain spotted the new command vessel, much larger than anything else in the fleet. It wasn't as large as the destroyed Dreadnought, but it was still a formidable force. "Echo," Rain said, his voice low and serious. "I need that command ship to be our first target." The AI responded almost instantly. "Understood," initiating decoy protocols. The Valiant's hull shimmered again, this time with a faint pulse. It was cloaking itself, but not fully. Echo had devised a way to make the ship appear in multiple locations at once, scattering its signals across space, confusing enemy sensors. The Draveri wouldn't know where to strike, and that would give them the upper hand. Rain looked at the fleet one last time before taking a deep breath. He thought of Earth, of the people counting on him to win this war. He thought of his own family, those who were still out there, waiting for a victory. The stakes had never been higher. "Let's do it," he whispered. The Valiant shot forward, its decoy signals scattering and multiplying. The enemy fleet reacted immediately, their ships breaking off into smaller groups, firing their weapons in every direction as they tried to locate the intruder. For a moment, Rain felt a fleeting sense of satisfaction. The Draveri had underestimated humanity, underestimated the Valiant. But this wasn't over yet. The first wave of enemy ships moved to intercept one of the decoy signals. Rain watched as the Valiant's real position remained hidden, tucked into the shadows of a nearby asteroid belt. His heart raced as he prepared for the next step. Echo's voice cut through his thoughts. "Now." Rain slammed the throttle forward, and the Valiant shot out of hiding. The closest enemy ships didn't know what hit them. The pulse cannons fired with pinpoint accuracy, tearing through their defenses before they could react. The first wave of Draveri ships was gone, and before the remaining ships could regroup, Rain had already moved to the second target. The command ship was close now, within range. He didn't hesitate. He fired everything. The concentrated blast hit the command vessel's shields first, and they flared bright as the energy surged against them. The Draveri ship groaned as the pulse cannons hammered at its defenses. The shields weakened, crackling with every hit, until they finally collapsed. With a final, devastating blow, the command ship's core exploded in a burst of light. Rain exhaled slowly, watching as the ship's wreckage scattered into the vacuum of space. But there was no time to relax. Echo's voice was calm, but urgent. The remaining fleet is reorganizing. They are preparing to launch a full-scale attack. Rain turned to face the screen. It was just the beginning of their last battle, and the stakes had never been higher. "This ends now," Rain muttered, his eyes hardening as he prepared for the final assault. "For Earth. For all of us." The Valiant sped toward the remaining Draveri ships, and the final showdown began. The Valiant surged forward, cutting through the emptiness of space like a dagger through flesh. The remaining Draveri fleet, now fragmented and disorganized after their command ship's destruction, was starting to regroup, but they were no match for the sheer audacity and speed of the Valiant. Rain knew it wasn't just skill keeping them alive, it was desperation. Behind him, the wreckage of the Draveri command ship floated like the remnants of a broken giant, still scattering debris into the void. The battle had taken its toll on both sides, but Rain could see the light at the end of the tunnel. This was the final push. If they could destroy the remaining ships, the Draveri would have no choice but to retreat. But the Draveri weren't known for retreating. They were conquerors, and Rain knew they wouldn't go down without a fight. "Echo, status report." Rain barked, his focus razor-sharp as his hands danced over the controls, adjusting course, locking onto targets. "Remaining fleet has split into 3 groups," Echo replied. "The largest is heading directly for Earth, while 2 smaller groups are attempting to regroup in the outer sectors. Estimated time until intercept, 24 minutes. Rain gritted his teeth. Earth. The very thought of it. The people waiting for them. They couldn't let the Draveri reach it. The sheer weight of that responsibility bore down on him, but he pushed it aside. The Valiant was their only hope now. How many ships are in each group? Group 1, 35 ships. Group 2, 15 ships. Group 3, 8 ships. Rain calculated quickly. They had the advantage, but just barely. One mistake, one misstep, and they could lose everything. He couldn't afford to hesitate. "Send a signal to Group 2, Rain ordered. "Tell them we'll meet them at the outer rim. We'll divide their fleet. No more holding back." There was a brief silence before Echo spoke again, the usual calm replaced by something that felt almost eager. "Message sent. They are already en route." Rain didn't wait for confirmation. The Valiant was already moving, shooting toward the outer rim where Group 2 had been regrouping. The ships in that formation were smaller, weaker, but they were still dangerous. The Valiant, however, was fast, and Rain had learned that speed was their greatest weapon. As they closed in on Group 2, Rain felt the hum of the ship's engines vibrate through him. Steady and sure. He could see the Draveri ships now, their metallic hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. They were waiting for him, not sure whether they were about to be ambushed or run into an unstoppable force. Rain didn't care. He hit the throttle. The Valiant launched forward, tearing through space with terrifying speed. The first ship in Group 2 didn't even see them coming. The pulse cannons fired in rapid succession, and the Draveri ship disintegrated, torn apart by the devastating blasts. Rain didn't slow down. He was a blur of calculated chaos as he swerved to avoid return fire and took down another Draveri ship in the same breath. Echo was quick to add, "Shields at 50%. We're holding, but we must be swift." Rain's eyes darted across the battlefield, mentally calculating every move. They couldn't afford to get bogged down in one-on-one skirmishes. They needed to keep moving, stay unpredictable, strike fast, and hit hard. As the Valiant sped through the chaos, Rain could hear the distant hum of their weapons, the crackle of energy discharges, and the gut-wrenching sound of impact. The ship's hull creaked with every hit, but it held. Echo was doing everything in its power to keep them alive, rerouting power, activating emergency shields, and deploying decoys. "Rain, I have an idea," Echo said, the AI's voice almost gleaming with an edge Rain couldn't quite place. "The remaining ships are clustered near a gravitational anomaly. If we can draw them toward it, The anomaly will distort their sensors and disrupt their formation. Rain blinked. Anomaly. You mean a black hole? Not a black hole, Echo replied. A dense neutron star. Strong gravitational pull. Enough to scatter their ships and create chaos in their ranks. If we're quick enough, we can split them apart before they even realize what's happening. Rain thought for a moment, his mind calculating the risk. The gravitational anomaly was far enough away that they wouldn't be trapped, but close enough to use to their advantage. It was a risky play, but they didn't have many options left. He pressed his lips together, determination hardening in his chest. Do it. Echo activated the course change, and the Valiant shifted direction, veering toward the dark, foreboding star that hung like an invisible trap. The closer they got, the more the ship's instruments flickered, the gravity pulling on them, warping the space around them. Rain's fingers hovered over the controls, ready to make the final call. As the Valiant approached the anomaly, the Draveri fleet followed, their ships closing in on the bait. Rain could almost feel the tension building as they neared the edge of the neutron star's gravity well. Now, Echo, he whispered. In a split second, the Valiant shot forward again, its engines roaring to life as it burst through the gravitational distortion. The Draveri fleet, too focused on their target, flew directly into the anomaly's reach. Their sensors went wild, scrambling to regain control as their ships were torn apart by the powerful gravitational forces. Rain watched in awe as one ship after another was pulled into the swirling gravity of the neutron star. Some were torn apart, their hulls crumpling under the immense pressure, while others were sent spiraling off course, lost in the vastness of space. The remaining ships were in chaos, their fleet scattered beyond recovery. The Valiant, now clear of the danger, slowed to a halt, its engines humming softly. Rain took a moment to breathe, watching the wreckage of the Draveri fleet slowly vanish into the distance. Echo, status? Rain asked, his voice low. Fleet neutralized, Echo replied, her voice filled with an odd satisfaction. The remaining ships are beyond reach. The Draveri will not recover from this defeat. Rain leaned back in his seat, exhaling deeply. The battle was over. They had won. But as he looked out into the stars, he knew this victory was only the beginning. The galaxy had been changed forever, and Earth's survival had sparked something far larger. The Draveri were not finished yet, and the next time they came, they would come harder. Rain couldn't let his guard down. Not now. Not ever. The Valiant had won the day, but the war was far from over, and Rain Carter was ready for whatever came next.